Dear viewers, this is the second part of today's story. For those who have not yet watched the first part, I recommend watching it from the beginning and then returning to this video, so you can fully immerse yourself in the story of our main character. I will leave a link to the first part in the description under this video. Enjoy watching. In the apartment, it was indeed quiet, but then he realized it wasn't completely so. The door to the room was ajar, and through the gap, he heard a man's voice. Still out of habit, not wanting to wake the sleeping child, Igor took 2 steps towards the door. The voices became clearer. The woman's voice sounded like his wife Marina, if not for the cheerful intonations and carefree, playful laughter. "Where are you rushing? He's out today and won't be back soon. We have the whole day ahead of us. I'll fry some potatoes with mushrooms for you. He bought some good mushrooms and ham the day before yesterday. How does he still suspect nothing? But you're a gem. By the way, his payday is in 2 days. Will you throw in some cash for me? I'll then put it into our bank account as usual. We already have a decent amount saved up. Did you see last month's statement? Oh, we could have taken more, but then there'd be nothing left to eat, and his car is always breaking down. A rusty piece of junk. All the money goes to fuel and repairs. And yesterday, too, he spent the whole evening somewhere, supposedly fixing something in it. Forget him. Come to me while Marina is asleep. She's such a darling. Just like me. How does your husband's horns even fit through the door?" The last phrase was drowned out by the hearty laughter of both. Igor couldn't take it anymore and stepped forward. Opening the door, he saw Marina on their bed in a sheer red negligee. She was embracing and shielding a man, but his hairy hands were confidently caressing her body, her back, lowering down and lifting the negligee. He clearly planned to remove it from her. Not waiting for his wife to be completely undressed, Igor asked, "Is Lyusya also his?" Marina jerked from the surprise, jumped on the bed and stared at him with made-up eyes. He looked at her painted face with some disdain, at the bright lipstick, the eyes accentuated with shadows and eyeliner. She had never once in her life made up for him. He had never seen this negligee on her. It had always been in a separate small closet in the hallway. Marina composed herself, realizing that Igor might have heard much of their conversation. Making a cold face, she got up from the bed and went for the robe hanging on the chair. The strange man began to climb out from under the blanket and pull on his pants. Igor looked at them calmly and detachedly. Marina couldn't withstand his intense gaze and the heavy silence. "I don't know who your Lyusya is from. I had just started seeing your brother then. And you married me because of this pregnancy, so you got what you wanted. And I don't care who Lyusya's father is." How to explain to his daughter that her mother had left with another man, Igor thought. He knew that the older girl, Lyusya, was not his child. 10 years ago, Marina had been seeing his brother, and when he tragically died, she came to the family claiming she was pregnant by him. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. She expected the boy's relatives to support her and the child. In the late stages of her pregnancy, she agreed to marry his brother. Thus, Igor became the official father of his niece. After these thoughts flashed through Igor's mind, he returned to reality. By then the man was almost dressed. He was silent, and there was not much to say. Marina stood in the middle of the bedroom, not knowing what to do next. From her husband's gaze, she understood that her role as a wife was over, and she seemed to be tired of it all herself. He only irritated her, as did Lyusya. Igor delivered his verdict. "Take your child and leave. We'll officially split the children in court. Marina goes to you, and Lyusya stays with me. You can keep the money from the account, and I won't report the fraud to the police for now. But if you start causing trouble, I'll get paternity tests for both daughters, so don't count on alimony. The same goes for the parental apartment. Any questions?" Marina silently took out a large bag and began to pack her clothes from the wardrobe. Bright blouses and dresses, colorful clothes Igor had never seen her wear, flashed before him. Indeed, he mostly saw her in the evenings after his hard work, in house robes, always tired and irritated. These outfits were clearly not for his eyes. How blind he had been. The man silently approached the crib and picked up the little girl. She woke up and reached out to him. She clearly knew and had seen him before. After dressing the child and packing their bags, they left the apartment. Marina threw the keys on the floor in the hallway and slammed the door. Igor took a deep breath for the first time, feeling a sense of freedom, as if he had been released from a cage where he had been held for years. He sat on a chair, staring blankly at the floor, going over everything he had heard in his mind again and again. He wondered if he had done everything right, if there was another way. He didn't feel much sorrow for letting the younger girl go with her mother. Marina was always fussing with the eternally fussy Irina, rarely letting him hold her. Yes, Igor hadn't insisted much, to be honest. He was always exhausted from work and had to take care of the older Lyusya. Though Marina hadn't worked since her first pregnancy, she barely paid attention to her older daughter. Igor now realized that she had almost no maternal love for her first child. She had used Lyusya to force him and his parents to support her. Now he saw it clearly. But Igor loved Lyusya. He had been deeply affected by his brother's death and pitied the newborn. He had grown attached to her and loved her as his own daughter. It was right for Lyusya to stay with him. She would be worse off with her mother. Igor looked around. The apartment felt empty, more spacious, quieter. Now, no one would meet him with scandals, constant discontent and reproaches. But how to tell Lyusya that her mother wouldn't be living with them anymore? How would the child take it? God, he needed to pick her up from school soon. The car. He had completely forgotten about Ivanovich, who was waiting for him outside with the money for the parts. Igor quickly went to the sideboard. The money was gone. Marina had taken it while packing, and he hadn't even noticed. Igor went to Ivanovich, got into the car. The man silently awaited an explanation. "There's no money, and my wife is gone too. I caught them with her lover and kicked them out." Igor calmly and slowly stated the fact, staring straight ahead. "I saw them getting into a taxi with bags," Ivanovich confirmed sympathetically, starting his old Zhiguli. They drove to the workshop, where the men were already disgruntled from waiting. They could have finished by now. Ivanovich told Igor to stay in the car and went to talk to the men. Soon he returned and started the Zhiguli. "We chipped in. We'll buy the parts now, and you can pay us back when you can. Do you have money for food?" "Thanks. I get paid in a couple of days. I'll pay everything back then." "And Lyusya, will she stay with you?" Ivanovich asked sympathetically. Igor was a regular client, understandable with such a car. Not a car, but a rusty wreck. And Lyusya often came with her father, sitting in the back seat doing homework while the men worked on the car. At first they were surprised, thinking the child could be left at home, but then they got used to it. They also noticed that Igor and Lyusya never had dinner at home. It was strange knowing there was an unemployed wife on maternity leave at home with the younger daughter, while the older one spent all day at school and aftercare, and even in the evening didn't rush home. Was it better to write on a portfolio on her lap than at a desk at home? Were store-bought buns tastier than homemade dinner? The men only silently and understandingly glanced at the girl in the back seat. When Igor went to the store, they brought water and turned on the old electric kettle. It became a tradition. They themselves suggested he use their cups, rinse them, and brew tea or coffee for his daughter and himself, not to choke on dry food. "Lyusya is at school," Igor frowned. "When do you pick her up? I'll take you to school. We'll manage the parts ourselves. Where should I take you?" Ivanovich spoke calmly and matter-of-factly. He tried not to show in his voice how sorry he felt for the downtrodden guy. Indeed, Igor's presence wasn't necessary in the workshop. Driving him to the school gates, Ivanovich firmly shoved some crumpled bills into his hand. "Here, hold on until payday, and then you'll pay me back. I'll call you when the car is ready. Maybe this evening, maybe tomorrow, as it goes." Ivanovich deliberately switched the conversation to the repair. He saw that the guy's eyes were becoming misty with tears. Yes, he was unlucky, but it was clear from the start that there was no family happiness there. Maybe now he'll have a chance to get his life in order? Igor stood in his usual spot. Only his car was missing. There was still half an hour before the bell. He wasn't in a hurry. He was just gathering his thoughts. How would he tell Lyusya? How to talk to a child? Probably, he should wait until they got home. Or was it better here? Or should he pick her up and have a conversation at the workshop? No, that would be even worse. When he picked her up, she glanced anxiously at him. Dad was on foot. No car. How did he get here? He took her hand and led her home, silently looking at the sidewalk, lost in thought. "Lyusya, Mom left us. She left with Irina. I'll be living with you now, alone." We will get by somehow. Lyusya also didn't react immediately. She just squeezed his hand tighter and followed him obediently. Then she asked, almost inaudibly, "Mom took Irina?" Igor, still looking down, only nodded in response. He was afraid to see how Lyusya would react. The child remained silent all the way home. In the entryway, the void was striking. Lyusya went into her room without looking around. Igor knew she wouldn't talk to him soon. She didn't go into the kitchen where he was making tea. She didn't come to the table to eat. Igor silently took her usual portion and poured milk into a mug, brought it to the room, placed it on the table, and left, quietly closing the door. He knew she would eat. She wouldn't starve herself in protest. He understood that it was. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. It's better to let her come to terms with it. After all, he had just become the closest person to her. Days and nights passed in a blur. Igor didn't have time to come to his senses. He only noticed that he needed to change habits. New duties and problems with Lyusya's school and chores around the house piled up. His mother promised to help him out after her vacation, but for now, he had to rely only on himself. He got used to cooking, washing, and cleaning. The car broke down less often, as they had replaced most of the necessary parts with new ones. There were enough funds for now, but he had to be more careful with spending. Gradually, everything settled down. Lyusya gradually opened up to him, shared her thoughts, fears, and dreams. Igor did his best to listen and support her. He knew they had a long way to go, but together, they would manage. When the car was ready, Ivanovich brought it back, almost new. Igor felt a sense of relief, knowing they could finally move on. He started looking for a better job, hoping to provide a more stable future for Lyusya. Every evening, they sat together, talking about their day, sharing stories, and laughing. Slowly, the void that Marina left was filled with new memories and a stronger bond between father and daughter. Life was challenging, but Igor and Lyusya faced it together. Their resilience and love for each other gave them the strength to rebuild and create a new, happier life. And as they moved forward, they knew they would always have each other to lean on.